Our webinar today is AI as a tool for students and our future leaders. Oasis International School in Kuala Lumpur has been named as an Apple Distinguished School and is joining a global network of schools recognised for their innovation, leadership and excellence in education and technology. In 2025, Travis Copus presented an AI in the Social Studies classroom at the Future of Learning conference and on AI as a thought partner in a webinar to teachers from the NICS Oasis network. He's been teaching for 21 years, both in the United States and Malaysia. He's a social studies teacher and I understand enjoys reading fantasy and science fiction. So Travis, welcome, and it's wonderful to have you here today. So as I mentioned before, I don't know a huge amount of AI, and I'm sure a lot of people in our audience of parents, employers and relocation professionals will be in the same boat. What would you say are the possibilities for AI in education, and why does this excite you?
So yeah, I think the future is really bright in education with AI, and so what I really have leaned into is using AI as a process to help teachers think about the lesson plans that they're creating, think about the ways that they're instructing, and ways that we can make not only the like lean into technology with AI, but as the teacher has a conversation with AI, we're oftentimes building lesson plans that don't use any computers, but the generation of the idea was done with AI, and then students are moving around the classroom. They're writing on chart paper or things like that, and so it's really been something that it's been fun to see a lot of teachers take and use. And one of the things that I want to kind of think about is AI isn't just students and teachers sitting at a computer all day. It's having a conversation with AI and then going and doing something physical that's really engaging and really transformative in the way that they can learn.
And do you think AI poses any risk to education?
I I think any new tool poses risk, and so in my piece that I wrote, I talk about that there's some key things that we need to make sure that education keeps as part of its focus. And so some of those things would be we need students to not lean on AI and say, like, what's the right answer to this? They lose their student agency, they lose their ability to sit down and say, what might be some possible answers for this? How do I work this out in my own head? How do I like maybe go to idea as a thought partner and think about this and then come back and then really do the wrestling with it? If you see a question written in my topic, social studies, then you say, hey, AI, in a lot of cases, Chat GPT, hey, what's the right answer? And the truth is, especially in social studies, there's lots of right answers. What perspective are we talking about? What time period are we talking about? And so we don't want to lose that. So AI definitely has sometimes we're seeing students just say, hey, I want the right answer to this question. I want it as fast as possible. And so here's the prompt the teacher gave me. I want to finish my homework. I want to finish the assignment. I want to get 100 on it. So thank you for that answer, AI, and then I'll put it down. And so what we want to see students doing is continuing that hard work of advocating for themselves, of deciding which direction they want to go, of continuing to pursue through hard work, all of those kinds of things. And so, as I've sometimes described AI, it can be an easy button. Like, here's the question, click the easy button, get an answer that sounds really good, but I didn't actually learn anything to take away. So that would be one of the threats that I would say that AI poses to education, is just to focus more on the outcome. Students are making a 100 rather than the student, the type and quality of student that we're producing through this process.
And what sort of age range at your school do children start using technology and AI?
Well, we definitely don't want to use it in the lower grades. That's an inappropriate level. And so the places that we're really starting to like implement it and look at the way we can use it is mainly in the high school. And so there's lots of things that you can do with AI that like can take you into that world. And so for example, sometimes last year I would feed in primary sources on a situation like I was teaching students about the slave trade and triangular trade across the Atlantic. And so I fed in some primary sources and then had AI create a situation where they were an enslaved person, and they then had to go through the experiences of what it was like to be in that place and to feel it more in a visceral way than to say, hey, this happened, it was bad. And so it was more of an experience of they were being fed the text. This is where you're at. This is what's happening to you. This is how you're being treated. And so I felt like it came to life in a new way for students in that way. And so they were able to write at the end really nice reflection pieces. And again, this is in high school where they're really being able to take this apart at a higher level.
And you alluded to a piece you've kindly written
Yeah.
for us called AI Shiny New Toy, which is great, and we'll be publishing it for people to read accompanying this. But you mentioned a human-centered approach. Would you like to expand a bit more on what you mean by that?
Yes, so I really want students to be at the center. I say something in the article like they're the center of the educational universe. And so a lot of times we can get caught up in, oh, look, there's this new toy. And so I was part of a school in 2013 that adopted iPads. And every day somebody would come to me and say, here's this new thing you can do with an iPad. And yet I felt like day after day I struggled with it. It wasn't really impacting the students in the way that people said that it would. And I love technology, I love AI, but at the same time, we still need to keep the student in the center and not just chase AI as a shiny new toy. I know that it's like common for schools to pay large amounts of money to purchase some type of AI program, and then they use that and say like, oh, look at us, we're at the forefront of AI technology, but is the student at the center of that equation? And so how are we really placing the student there? Are we thinking about what their needs are and not just chasing this kind of buzz and hype that AI has generated around the world? At the same time, I think AI has so much potential and possibilities, as I've already talked about, but we need to keep the student at the center, their experience at the center, and to make sure that they're still learning the core knowledge and content.
And you also raised, I think, the fact that it may not be coming as fast as people thought it was. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah. So there's a scientist by the name of Amara, I think Robert Amara, but he had as a law, and it was actually developed in I think the late 1970s. And he said when a new technology arrives on the scene, then we often overestimate the immediate impact it's going to have. And so when AI started coming out, when ChatGPT, I think two or three released, suddenly I started getting these really great answers, and you're wondering like, whoa, what happened here? You read news articles about this, and you think, wow, AI is going to change everything. And then the truth is, like, it hasn't drastically changed the day-to-day classroom. In fact, what it's changed is like a lot of students are using it to, like I said, use it as an easy button, get the right answer, and then turn that in. So it's led to an increase in some of the cheating and AI policies that we've had to develop. But we're only starting to just now, like in some of the things I alluded to, some of the situations where we can have case studies or like simulations done on AI where the student is taken and there's more immersive things happening. And to be honest with you, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years with AI. I have some guesses, but I really think it's going to be different than more impactful and different in its impact than what we imagine it right now. And so the immediate impact is much less, but the long-term impact is greater and in different ways than we envision. And so that's what I'm kind of trying to think through and kind of stay away from all this hype and buzz and fury of things and just say, hey, let's step back and make sure the student's at the middle of all the things that we're doing.
That's really interesting. And that leads on to a further question about talking about failure and young people. And why is it key in this learning process? Because young people, and at your school, they'll be very aspirational, so will their parents, and they'll be high achieving. But in reality, when we're talking about STEM and scientists and space and all these things, there's a huge amount of
Yes.
failure and experimentation that carries on. But in schools, you know, when you're focusing on on your education, it may not seem that failure is a good thing. So perhaps you can just describe what that means, because young people today are under quite a lot of pressure to succeed, aren't they, at all stages of education?
Definitely. We see that students want to get the right answer the first time. So then they're driven to AI and they're writing down answers that they don't fully understand. And so there is this idea that someone else is using it, someone else is getting a better answer than me, and I can't mess up, I can't make a mistake. And so we really want to encourage. There's a common teacher acronym of fail is first attempt in learning, and that there's so many things to learn from each time that you fail. But we're seeing kids be pretty stressed. I actually came from an assembly that had just wrapped up when I came into this interview, and we were trying to help kids mitigate their stress because they are seeking perfection. Like, I want to make 100 on every single assignment, and well, there's AI, that's possible. So we're teaching them, like, hey, think of each failure as a stepping stone that you can get, and you can get a little bit further. Yeah, it's hard to fail. It doesn't feel good, but you learn something from it. You build on that knowledge and you keep moving forward. And so we're just seeing a lot of stress come out of kids. Like you said, they're high achieving, they have super high goals, they want to go off to some of the top universities. And so they're thinking about all these other people competing against them. And so we're just trying to help kids, one, manage the stress of being perfect. And then two, it's great to fail. Everybody's failing. I know I'm failing all the time.
Yes.
And so, but you learn from it and you move forward. And with those failures, you are building an academic career and knowledge, and some humility is really needed in the world today. And so we really like the idea that students are trying things that are difficult for them, but they don't always have to get them right. They can fail and fail forward into knowledge and into, still have success.
Mm. And the school, I've seen the photos and videos you've got, everyone looks very happy and cheerful and enjoying sports and creative things and drama and outdoor space. So, how is it that you managed to create in the school a safe environment to fail and bring everybody along together? And then also, this important thing about collaboration, because later in the workplace, people need to work in teams.
So, my first answer to that is it's all centered around teachers. Even as a principal, I don't go in the classroom, and I create the climate for what I hope is a middle school where failure is okay. But it's all about the teachers that are building the climate and culture of their classroom, that let's try this, let's see what your answer is. It's the way you respond, right? If a student's like they're shy, I don't want to try an answer because I might get it wrong, you say, hey, why don't you get us started, and then you'll give us part of the answer, and we'll see if everybody in the room can collaborate and build on your first attempt in learning, your failure to get the whole thing right, and then we'll build on that. So we want to build that, and we have great teachers that are doing that really well in many places throughout the school. Like you mentioned, sports as well. You don't win every game. You're not successful in every match that you play. And so part of that is learning to lose well. I think when we talk about sports, we often think of multi-million-dollar athletes and the trophies and accolades that they win. But generally, I hate to say this, most athletes are losing quite a bit. And so we love to have an athletic program. We like to win, but also there's just as many lessons to be learned when a student athlete fails. they feel like they didn't make the shot or do the thing that would have won the match. And hey, that's a great teaching time right there to have everyone gather around that student and to say, well, you're successful because you played as a team. You're successful in the way that you uh, carry yourself forward in loss, and you're like, learn from this because hopefully next time you're on the winning side and you want to be a positive winner. But I feel like the teachers in the classroom are the key component to building an atmosphere and a climate that helps students uh, be okay with failure, especially in a high achieving school.
So let's move on now and talk about how do you define leadership and as self-agency. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about this earlier. And so we have at Oasis, and I think a lot of schools, I've done some study on like looking at mission and vision statements. A lot of schools say they want to create leaders, and that's what we aspire to do. And then I think you have this really question. You start questioning what's a leader? What's that mean? Because there's a quiet kid in the corner. They never speak up. How are they going to become a leader? And I kind of come to the answer of it's leading yourself. It's having that self agency so that when you're in a situation and you see a problem that needs to be fixed, whether that's big or small, maybe you don't need to, speak up and give a speech in front of a group of people. You can just move towards a solution and grab a couple people and say, hey, let's go fix this problem that no one else is seeing and it needs to be done. And especially at the lowest level, that might be just contacting a teacher and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this assignment. I need some help. And that, in essence, is self agency. Sometimes it's called student agency. And so we really want students to maintain that. And I think that one of my concerns, the thing that I don't want students to lose out of AI, is what I mentioned earlier, is when a prompt is given by a teacher and you're struggling to understand it, you take the easy way out. You don't lead yourself. You don't contact the teacher. You don't ask friends. You just say, hey, what's the right answer? And you input it. And so that loss of self agency, that loss of trying to search for an answer, thinking that some machine has the answer, and that, like we have leaders that are really great students that are running like our student government and things like that. I don't want that from them. And I don't want it from the quiet, shy kid that sits in the corner. I want them to take where they're at right now, whether a great leader or someone that nobody really sees as a leader, and take small steps forward of their own volition, their own energy, and that self agency that they really need to have to make things a little bit better for them, to fix the things they see there. And as they learn to do that, they can actually, I think, become real leaders of leading one or two or a lot of more people using their own desire and will and energy.
And what do you think the qualities are going to be that young people need in the future? I know this has been aired a lot, but then again, AI has unsettled that. What are going to be the jobs of the future? So, as a teacher, what are you preparing them for? What types of careers? And so, what's your focus then? Because you must be a moving target
Well,
every year and every term.
if I give you the honest answer, it's I don't know. And here's what I want to say on the back of that is that's okay. I don't think anybody knows, but what we want to produce are students that are learners. So they desire to learn, they know how to learn. And I think students that are focused on the right answer and just producing the right answer are going to struggle because soon a machine is going to do that far better. I mean, we've already seen that many of the AI programs can produce PhD level quality. I can't compete with that in very many fields. And so it's going to outpace the intelligence of students. So, what can a student do? They can learn how to learn, they can learn how to use AI, they can learn how to push themselves, challenge themselves. Be courageous is a speech I've been giving in a couple of classes recently. Like, be courageous to do something new, to try something new, to step out. Because I don't know, like I've seen some charts that there's an erosion of tech jobs because you can now do coding. I did some vibe coding the other day. I made a program with just some chat with an AI, and then it created a tool that I could use to help teachers create lessons that were innovative and like collaborative in the classroom. So I don't really know what it's going to take away. Again, that's back to Amara's law. The suspected impact of AI is probably going to be less in the short term, but much greater in the long term. And so we just want to have students that are flexible, that have communication skills, collaboration skills, creativity skills, and then whatever new tool is thrown at them, they can learn that tool and then hopefully transition and be successful. I can make it sound pretty easy. It's a pretty complex equation, and nobody knows exactly how it's going to play out. But we're just doing our best to prepare kids for a future that really nobody. I would say, though, we were saying this 10 years ago. We don't really know what the jobs are going to be in 15 or 20 years, but we have to produce kids that are flexible and learners and able to push themselves and be courageous to go pursue those things.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And just one final thing, which was slipped in by your team. So, how do we create schools that balance this equation to embrace the possibilities and mitigate risk? So, if you've got some tips for other schools out there who are starting on their journey.
Um, I think like back to the student as the center. And so I know there's some great, I mean, we collaborate with other international schools. There's some great schools that are really thinking about the student as the center. I've also been in situations um, at this school and other schools where the thing was all about a tool. Can we buy this tool? Can we do this thing? Can we subscribe to this website? That's going to fix all the problems. And so we really want to put that student at the center and then give them a host of opportunities to succeed and to fail. And so I feel like schools that are doing that, um, schools are never perfect. And I long ago, divorced myself of the idea that I would ever work at a perfect school. But I want to be working at a school that's continuously improving itself and thinking about uh, if a school is a learning institution, it can also be learning about itself and how to do its programs and its policies and the things that it's doing with students better. And so, as we give students more experiences, more opportunities to be out in the community or to try, STEM or things like that that are leading to, hey, our robot didn't do what we programmed it to do. How do we go back to the drawing board and think through that again? As we give those opportunities, I think those quality teachers, back to the how do you create a safe place to fail, is about the teacher that's leading that, and then that conversation that develops. And so, great schools are always populated by great teachers. It really can't get away from that. And I guess maybe that's one thing you ask about. What are the jobs of the future? I think teachers are still going to be needed to like guide and help students approach an uncertain and like increasingly divided and increasingly uncertain future. But it can be a mentor or a teacher can guide them through that. And so we just try to craft experiences. We have an international celebration coming up where students are creating carnival games on their own, all student led. They're changing their rooms into different countries, but we try to get students out in the community. We try to give them a chance to fail. And then I think too, like uh, parents and teachers both have the struggle. They want to step in and save the kids from failing. And so there are times where you just sit back as a teacher and you say, I know that's not going to work. Um, and then you just have to step back and just not do anything and watch the student fail. And then you have that conversation. Then you're the mentoring guide to how to do it the next time in the proper way.
Thank you very much. Well, that's most insightful. So, you sound very optimistic for the future, and that's great to hear. Anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? Perhaps you could just summarise for listeners roughly the number of pupils in the school, and that you're an American curriculum
Yes.
fundamentally, is that
That's
right?
correct. So,
Yes.
Oasis International School, I think we have about 320 students enrolled. We're K4 through 12. And then we're American curriculum, and then we teach the advanced placement courses throughout the high school.
Well, it sounds a fantastic school, and thank you for sharing your insights. And I'll certainly be a bit more confident about embracing AI and look forward very much to hearing more about what's happening at Oasis International School. So, Travis Copus, thank you so much for your time
Thank you
today.
as well.
So I've been hosting this webinar as part of our International Education and Schools Fair. You can find more information about Oasis International School on these contact details, and please keep up to date with all things education with our International Education and Schools Fair and multimedia across education throughout the world. Thank you very much for joining us today.